Hi, I'm Clarkstown Supervisor George Hoehmann, and welcome to another edition of Hometown Happenings. Before we get to our show today and our guests, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the things we've been up to here in the town of Clarkstown. In June, we had a public hearing and passed our local law for our Do Not Knock registry. The Do Not Knock registry is a registry where people can sign up to avoid solicitations at their homes. We've had many residents that have raised issues with people coming to their homes, particularly real estate brokers, trying aggressive solicitation to purchase people's homes, or salespeople that will come and attempt to sell objects and services at people's houses. This is a quality of life issue, and I'm delighted that our town board passed the Do Not Knock registry. And you can contact the town of Clarkstown, the town attorney's office, visit our website, and be able to get yourself signed up to be listed on the registry that will prevent solicitations at your home. In addition, we've had our public outreach throughout the community. We're continuing with our teletown hall meetings pretty much on a monthly basis. We've had a number of them since our last shows. And we've also had our Coffees with the Supervisor, which is an opportunity for me to go out into the community to different coffee places to be able to listen directly to the residents, to hear your concerns and answer your questions. The Coffees with the Supervisor have been really a wonderfully effective opportunity for me to engage with the residents within our community. And I want to thank my office staff for being able to help set that up, and the different businesses that have welcomed us in to host us, David's Bagels, as well as Bagel Boys, Dunkin' Donuts, and Goldberg's in New City. And we'll have several more Coffees with the Supervisors coming up, one in July and again in the fall. So it'll be an opportunity for us to continue to engage with the community. Finally, I'd like to really thank the residents of the town of Clarkstown for working closely with our departments and engaging with us in our dialogue and our conversation. The teletown hall meetings have been extremely well received, and we've had thousands of residents who've been able to engage with us. It's something that's new, and it's, as I said, it's been well received, and it's something that's been very, very positive for us in the town of Clarkstown to really hear what your concerns are so that we might be able to address them. Again, to get more information, please contact my office at area code 845-639-2050, or you can contact us through the website at www.clarkstown.org. On today's show, I'm very excited because we've got some wonderful guests. Al Samuels, the head of the Rockland Business Association, will be talking to us about business within Rockland County and the new white paper that's coming out. We have Maureen Morgan, who is a Rockland County Veteran of the Year in 2010 and the first female commander the American Legion here in Rockland County, and she'll be giving us an update about the American Legion. And our final guest, Frank DeCenzo, our highway superintendent, will give us an update on the paving here within Clarkstown this year, the 41 roads that we've been able to pave this year, and the future plans to pave even more, and some of the other efforts within the highway department. So stay tuned. That's all happening on this episode of Hometown Happenings. Welcome back, and our first guest is Al Samuels, the president of the Rockland Business Association. Welcome, Al.
George, how are you? Thanks for having me.
So, Al, you're a dear friend. I know that you've been very involved here in Rockland County for very many years in the business community. The RBA is a tremendous organization where you serve as the president, and where you've really done some wonderful things to help promote business within Rockland County. So maybe you could tell our viewers a little bit about the Rockland Business Association, about that organization and what it does.
Well, just a brief bit of history. We were created in 1967. We've been around a long time. And we have been the county's Chamber of Commerce all those years. But about 15 years ago, I saw that there was a shift in chamber community, and that those chambers that really were looked upon very seriously within the political arena, that were getting the better benefits with regard to economic development, we're really shifting into public policy, advocacy, and economic development. And so we changed the RBA. We kind of shifted the model. Those are our three main areas of concentration. And we still perform all of the functions that your traditional chamber would have. You've been to many of the meetings and many of the forums. But the real service that we provide to the larger community, not just the membership and not just to the business community, but the community of Rockland, is what we do in terms of advocacy, public policy, and economic development.
And how long have you been the president of the Business Association?
Coincidentally, the 15 years that I just mentioned.
Yeah, and you come from a very unique background. I probably should have started with that. Maybe you were on the rodeo circuit. You have a military background. Maybe you could talk just a little bit.
There are people who point to that and say he's never been able to hold a job or focus on any one thing. But I've been very lucky. I've gotten to do a lot of things that I wanted to do. And basically, there were opportunities that presented themselves, and I took advantage of them, which is something I tell to every new business person. Don't be afraid to take advantage of an opportunity, and don't be afraid to fail at it. Just learn from it. So my career started as a police officer in Long Beach, out on Long Island. And then I went into service, met some folks while I was in the military. They got me involved in investigative journalism when I got out. I actually worked for the Atlanta Constitution and Journal during the birth of the Civil Rights Movement, which was very exciting times. I was an editor and a publisher in the business press. And from 1955 to 1996, I was a professional rodeo cowboy during all of the other things that I did. In the beginning, it was a full-time job, and then as I got older and had responsibilities and family, it became somewhat, avocational. But I retired from that actively in 1996, and now I judge rodeos. I also had 9 years with the U.S. Marshals Service, where I headed up a special unit under Civil Affairs, a mounted unit, a special mounted unit. I was chief of the U.S. Marshals Posse. So I've had wonderful times. I mean, I've been a cowboy and a cop and a newspaper man and a businessman. So I've been able to live all the things that I thought about when I was a kid and then some.
That's really fascinating background, and I have to imagine that really brings, that depth of experience really brings a knowledge base, to you as the president of the RBA that's really been helpful to Rockland's businesses. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that the RBA is working on. I know this show is going to air in July, and so at that point you'll have probably released your white paper, or will shortly have released your second white paper. So maybe you could talk a little about the white paper and about some of the initiatives that the RBA is involved
if you recall, in 2012, we issued a white paper on why Rockland was experiencing the fiscal decline that we were, experiencing. 7 years of the worst fiscal decline in the county's history. And those who contributed to it, and unfortunately, you have to look at your elected community, and so there were issues on both the executive side of 11 New Hempstead Road and certainly the legislative side of New Hempstead Road. There were changes that took place in terms of the roles that the people who were, there in charge during those 7 to 9 years. We took a look after that at some of the results of that white paper. We feel that our white paper led to the closing of the Summit Park facility, which, when we did the white paper, was draining us at the rate of $1 million a month. I think by the time it closed, it was down to $800,000. But it was the single largest contributor to the $138 million deficit that Rockland had back in 2011 and 2012. The county pharmacy, which basically was a giveaway, that was closed, and there were millions saved there. So we feel, when I said that what we do now is at a level that benefits the entire community, not just business community or members, that's something that we point to with great pride. I learned that Rockland was the second highest tax county in the United States of America.
Just
And that was
unbelievable.
just staggering.
Absolutely.
I couldn't handle that. Westchester was number one, and fine, they can have that title, God bless them.
But why?
Okay, so we commissioned Pattern for Progress, which is a highly respected think tank, and they did our first white paper, and we asked them, please, peel back all the layers of the onion. Because lots of folks in government will say, well, the biggest problem are unfunded mandates, but all 62 counties in New York State have the same mandates. Why are they more dramatically negative in Rockland? That's what we needed to find out. Right. Rockland has a reputation which is one to be, honored in being a very giving community. We have more charitable organizations per capita than any other county in the state of New York, but there are costs attached to it. We have services that are greater and have more depth to them than many other counties. There are costs attached there. And we said, you know what, we have to take a look at all of that. And we have to just ignore the fact that some of those very institutions that we'll look at are member organizations. That even if they're not members, there are valuable services that are provided. And if the people of Rockland want those services, they need to know what the cost is. So the approach for this white paper is let Rockland know why we are so highly taxed. And then Rockland make a decision.
Right.
Do you want the services that you're getting, and are you willing to pay the price? Or do you want to have cuts made because as great as they are, we can't afford it? And so that's the focus of the white paper. I will share only one thing because we're not releasing this until after the July 4th holiday. The proximity to New York City is the single largest contributor to the cost of being in Rockland County. Because all 10, the top 10 counties in the country that are the highest tax are all around New York City. 3 of them New York counties, Westchester, Rockland, Nassau, and 7 in New Jersey. But it's all because of the proximity to New York City. That's something we can't change. Right. So we have to adjust everything else that we do have some control over. But that's an interesting point. I guess we never really stopped to look at it, forest for the trees sort of thing. Right. New York City is the highest cost of living area in the country, so it makes sense. But there are things that we can do, and the white paper will show there's no agenda other than letting Rockland know what it is that causes our taxes to be so high, and then letting them see where they might want to make adjustments.
Right. So Al, we're almost out of time, but I do want to just offer this for our viewers and for you. When I was elected as the supervisor last year and I put together my transition team, I was delighted that you said yes and joined the transition team. And wanted to really have folks on the transition team that a mix of people that were from within government and certainly outside of government, and folks from the business community. And you brought some really valuable insights to the transition team. You were part of the transition folks, worked in small groups, and I just want to thank you for that effort, because even though you're not a resident of Clarkstown, you serve a very important role really as the chief spokesperson for business within Rockland County. The RBA has been a strong partner for the town of Clarkstown throughout the years, will continue to be so under my administration. And I want to thank you for your efforts on behalf of the people of Clarkstown.
Well, I thank you for the privilege of serving. It was a good group.
Right, it really was. We had a dynamite group of folks, some really top-notch business owners, and as I said, people from all walks of life, all political persuasions. It was really a very dynamic group, and they provided some really keen insight and analysis for me, coming in as the new supervisor. And one of the things we've done, frankly, is to really embark on a program to do similarly what you're talking about in the white paper, to really evaluate our services.
Well, I recall a month or so ago you joined us in meeting with one of your major businesses, and that was something that you requested, and they were thrilled.
Yes.
I mean, for the most part, folks do not meet with their business community, and that's a shortcoming. And Cliff Wood and I, we're on the Governor's Regional Economic Development Council. We've gone before the legislature for 4 or 5 years, and we stress, legislators, meet with the businesses in your district. supervisors meet with the businesses and they say, well, you're doing that, and it resonates well with them because they appreciate the fact that the elected official, the chief economic development officer, the chief executive officer for their geography cares enough about them to come. I want you to know that was a very well received visit, and if you'd like, we can set up more of them for you.
We absolutely will, and in fact, you may not be aware of it, but there's already 2 more coming. So you'll be part of with the REDC as well, and that's one of the things that we're working on. We'll have you on again in a future show, Al, to really kind of talk about some of the economic development initiatives. As this show airs in July, we're coming up on the deadline on the application for the consolidated fiscal application, and I know you as a member of the Regional Economic Development Council have really taken the lead in that. So I think it probably would be apropos to have you back on later in the year to talk a little bit about.
Are you referring to the
development.
TOD project in
Yes.
Nanuet? Great project.
Yeah.
Great project, great vision behind that project, great execution so far. We would love to see that. The first TOD venue in Rockland County, it could be replicated in Suffern, in Spring Valley, in Pearl River. I mean, this really can set a tone for a great economic advancement in Rockland.
Absolutely. So anyway, Al, I want to thank you not only for being my guest, but for your friendship and support throughout the years, and for all that you do for the business community. Grateful that you took the time to be our guest today.
Well, that's very kind, George. Thank you very much. All
Thanks
the
so much.
best.
Thank you. And welcome back. My next guest is Maureen Morgan, the County Commander for the American Legion. Welcome, Maureen.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much, for being our guest on this episode of Hometown Happenings. We're very happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
So, Maureen, maybe you're a veteran, U.S. military veteran. So we could talk a little bit about your career, and I want to talk a bit about the American Legion, and you're the County Commander for that. So. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, your background. You're a U.S. Navy veteran?
I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I was in the Navy from 1979 to 1983. I was stationed in Hawaii. I was a YN3, which is a Petty Officer Third Class, a yeoman. I was basically the secretary to the Commodore of Commander Patrol Wing 2.
Okay.
I did all his administrative paperwork and scheduled his Westpac trips because we were in charge of VP squadrons and a C-130 squadron.
That must have been a great tour of duty out in Hawaii, and I guess the history too with Pearl Harbor, and imagine with you being working for the commander, of a division that really would be. Would have enabled you to meet a lot of interesting folks coming out to see Pearl Harbor.
Oh yes. Well, I was stationed at Barbers Point, so I was about 35 minutes away from Pearl Harbor. So, but whenever he needed to go anywhere, I was his driver too.
Okay.
So I drove him around the island.
What's your fondest memory from your time in service?
About the time I think I told him I couldn't drive his car because it was a stick and I couldn't reach the clutch. And he called Motor Pool and said, "Send me an automatic. She can't reach the clutch."
Oh, that's funny.
And that's how I became his driver and then became a secretary.
Well, that's great.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, let's talk a little bit about the American Legion. It's a wonderful organization. Maybe for the benefit of our viewers who have only heard the name American Legion or the term, they don't really know anything about it. Tell us a little bit about the American Legion, and then let's talk about some of the things that American Legion does on the national and then local level.
The American Legion was formed in 1919. We'll be celebrating 100 years on March 17th, 2019. It was formed to help veterans get their benefits and support the veterans who were coming back from war and had no place to go. We have a 4-pillar program. It's Americanism, children and youth, service to the veterans. And in those programs, we support the communities. We get out there. We try to help anybody who needs help. We help the veterans get their service officers through the VA, get their paperwork, get their benefits, get whatever they're entitled to. Yes, a lot of posts have homes. And everybody thinks it's a good old boys club where you go and sit and drink and talk about wartime stories. But we do a lot. The New City Post has had Memorial Day where they had the Cub Scouts and the Girl Scouts working in their garden. They had Flag Day where they retired flags, and the Boy Scouts were there to help present the flags to be retired. So they learned the proper protocol of retiring a flag. Leo Ladders has a baseball team. My post, we work with the students in East Ramapo. We sponsor basketball teams and baseball teams. We do Boy State. We sponsor Boys to Boy State. Boy State are for juniors going in the top 50% of their class. They go up to Morrisville every year, and they learn about the American Legion. They learn about the government. They learn what it takes to vote. They learn how to elect officers. In fact, I have 14 boys leaving on Sunday from Rockland County going up to Boy State.
Oh, wow.
We also do an oratorical contest. We had a student in Rockland County, she was homeschooled, who called me, said she wanted to try do the oratorical. She won the county level, and then there's a district level. She won the district level, and then there's a zone level where you have two districts working together. She won the zone level. She went up to department. She won the department level of the oratorical and went to the national level. And at each step, she won money for college. At the national level, she came in the quarterfinals. And they only have 3 winners.
Right.
And they can win up to $18,000 to go to college. So that's what we do. We have programs that show show students what is available and what the American Legion is about. So they learn about the veterans. They learn what they did in wartime. They learn what they do in the service. They are there to help. We also honor Eagle Scouts. In my 2 years as a county commander, I just finished on June 6th as the county commander. We have a new county commander. I did 81 Eagle Scout ceremonies in 2 years.
Which is in and of itself, it's amazing. That's how I've gotten to know you a little bit over this past year. I've been going to Eagle Scout ceremonies for years as a councilman, but now as supervisor, I try and get to every single one, particularly with the Scouts and the troops in our town. And you know, I've been to probably a quarter of the ones that you've been to so far as supervisor. But the Eagle Scout program is just a wonderful, you know, it's a wonderful honor, you know, frankly, and it's a great program, you know, within scouting. It's the highest designation, the highest award for scouting. But it's really great to see what the veterans do to really kind of support the Scouts and the American Legion, where you folks will show up, as well as the Marine Corps League, which is really, it's usually very impressive.
Yes, it's a project. We also have formed a book for the Eagle Board. So if an Eagle Scout says, I need a project, they can go through this book. They can call any post and say, what would you like done at your post? I'm doing an Eagle Scout project. I had somebody who contacted me about having a grave site on her property, and she would like to know if she can get it repaired and bring it up and make it look nice again. So I presented it to the Eagle Board so that they can give it to an Eagle Scout who would be interested in doing that kind of.
That's great.
So,
how many posts are within Rockland County?
there are 16 posts in Rockland County.
Okay.
They go from Sloatsburg to Hillburn, down to Spark Hill, up to Piermont, Rockland, North Rockland, Orangeburg. There are, trying to think now, there are about 2, maybe 3 posts that don't have a home. Okay. So we have meetings in a firehouse or in a community center. So, I mean, my post, I'm from post 199. We don't have a home. We sold our building because our post was getting smaller, so we sold the building. And then it got big again. So we meet at the firehouse on Furman Place once a month. And that's where we discuss everything.
So how does a person become a member of the American Legion? And there's also programs and membership classes within the American Legion where you don't have to be a veteran. You have to have a connection to a veteran, but you don't have to be a veteran. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. To be a veteran in the American Legion, you had to have served during certain times. I served during Grenada, Lebanon, so I was able to join. The American Legion is the only veterans organization that's been sanctioned by Congress. So there are certain dates that you might not be able to join because there wasn't a time of war or there wasn't a time of conflict. You can, if you have a father or a brother or a sister or a mother, aunt, uncle, join the Sons or join the auxiliary. And you can do that. I'm a dual member of the American Legion. I am a member of the auxiliary. My father was in the Army, and I am a veteran in the American Legion as a Legionnaire. But you have to show that you had a parent that was in the American Legion and that they were in wartime. You have to have their DD-214, which is their discharge papers.
Right. So, Maureen, we're just about out of time. As this episode airs, they'll be having the new convention where they'll formally install your replacement. But I'm delighted that you came on to be our guest this month. I know that we really didn't even get to talk a little bit about the other hat that you wear. You're actually a guidance counselor, right?
I work in the secretarial office. I'm a secretary in the office at Spring Valley High School.
Right. Okay. So I think you probably work over there with one of our Clarkstown legislators. I think Legislator Santulli is also...
Yes, she's a social studies teacher.
And a social studies teacher there, so you should probably cross paths with her. But
Yes.
I want to thank you for what you do for our community. I've seen it firsthand with the representation for the Legion that you do at the Eagle Scout Awards, Eagle Courts of Honor, and 81 of them that you presided over the last 2 years. So really thank you for your service, and thank you for what you do to help make Rockland a better place and really support veterans and youth within our community. So thank you for being our guest on this edition of Hometown Happenings.
It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And welcome back. And my final guest of our show is Highway Superintendent Frank DeCenzo. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you.
So, Superintendent DeCenzo, I'm really happy to have you on our program. You're also newly elected, finishing up 6 months now as Highway Superintendent. And one of the first questions that we typically get asked by our residents is about the condition of the road. When is it going to be paved? How many roads we pave? So really, maybe we could talk a little bit about our paving program. I know we're going to be making some changes to the paving program, but maybe you could talk a little bit about what we've done so far this year, because you really got a good jump on the paving this year.
Yeah, well, we started probably around February this year because the weather kind of helped us out nicely. So we got into new pipe work. We cleaned all catch basins, jetted all pipes, and started replacing everything right away. And then we started to pave about a month ago. So we are paving approximately 41 streets, about 7.5 miles of road that we're taking.
And how many miles of roads do we have in Clarkstown?
Almost 300.
Almost 300.
Yeah, 295 miles.
Right. And
So
those are town roads.
those are town roads, correct.
Because there's also a fair bit of confusion that will happen for our residents where they might call us about a different road that's owned by the county or owned by the state. So some of the state roads would be, for example, Route 303, 304, Route 9W, Route 59. Some of the county roads would be Jermons Road, Little Tor Road, Middletown Road, Congress Lake Road, portions of that as well.
We get a lot of phone calls for other roads that, we're having problems on, can you pave the causeway, can you pave it? And we have to kind of direct them to the right spots to call to get it done. And I get criticized for some of them, and then I get called and they thank me for doing it. So we're going to try to teach everyone, give a little lesson of how.
Who to go for which road. I mean, obviously we want residents to reach out to the town if they've got questions or concerns or any problems, and we'll make sure that we can move them through the process and direct them.
Right, the girls try to take care of as much as they can and direct them wherever they. But there is a lot of road to get done, and we're actually going to start soon on next year's list of checking all the catch basins and moving forward for next year, try to get an early jump.
So talk to me a little bit about what goes into the work on our roads for paving. So you indicated, as people are probably listening to this interview are saying, wow, you're starting in February, during the winter season. So explain, really what that entails. I think you kind of ran through it very quickly, but what does that really entail? You have to evaluate, there's a lot of stuff in our roads.
Well, as early as beginning of January, we went out and we kind of assessed some of the worst roads that we have around. And what we did was we sent out our crew with our jet vac. It cleans out the catch basins and it'll jet pipes to make sure everything is cleared. And then we have one of our guys will go down and they'll actually physically look in the pipe to see the condition of it. If it's in bad shape, we write it up and we move on. You know, we'll write up the catch basin, see if it needs some block, full rebuild, partial. And then we move on, they move on to the next, and they keep going down the line. And every catch basin on every street gets physically looked at, and they go in and they check everything. And then after we're all done, we go and we start handing them off, and they start to rebuild and replace pipe. And we replaced a good 3,000 feet, maybe more of pipe.
For this year's paving?
For this year, yeah.
For the 41 streets?
Correct.
Okay. And I think there's another step as well as it relates to the paving of the roads, as I understand it from you, that you have to check with the outside entities because they, you know, one of the things that you really don't want to have happen is where you pave a road and then it gets torn up, you know, in the next year or two for some additional work. So maybe can you explain what happens with that?
What we do is we will take our list of roads, the 41 streets that we have, and we will send it to Suez, O&R, DEC in the town, and we give it to them and tell them this is our list for this year. If you have anything that has to be done, let us know. If it's something that's in the near future, like in the next year, then that road will have to get put off a year and we'll move towards putting another street on. So we get a lot of questions, as you do, about South Mountain Road. How come we're not paving South Mountain Road? How come you did it? But DEC has a big project going over there, and O&R as well. So that's why we reach out to them, because we don't want to pave and then rip it back open again and have that problem.
Right, because I think the other piece of that is that, you know, with the paving, when a contractor such as Suez, or formerly United Water, or Orange and Rockland, is out to pave a street, that they have to bring it back, you know, they have to patch it, but they don't have to do a full repavement of the entire road, they just have to patch what they've done.
Well, the town has a 5-year, like they put a moratorium on it. If we pave it, we do not have to give a road opening permit for 5 years, unless emergency. Obviously, that supersedes everything. But we can tell them, no, do not open that road. We don't care. You had your time. But if so, we can tell them to repave the whole road again, and they either have to do that or they have to wait.
Right. So I know that as it relates to paving, and our viewers are going to be, they're learning more about paving than they probably will ever want to learn. But it's really an important conversation to have. I know that one of the first discussions that you and I had in January when we both took office, you as the superintendent and myself over in the supervisor's office, was to really ask the question, why do we do what we do in Clarkstown? And I think some of the research that you've done and some of the research that I've done, Clarkstown approaches our roads very differently than a lot of the other towns within the county.
Correct.
You know, we do full rebuilds of our roads, essentially. So maybe you could kind of explain kind of what the road program has been and where we're kind of looking at moving to with diversification for the paving.
Well, right now when we pave, the paving company comes in and they will mill down the curbs. Some they have to mill the whole entire road, curb to curb. And you know, it's an expensive process it's a process that it's almost impossible to catch up with. 200-300 miles of road would take 40 years. So now we're looking into other areas that we can try to, like I've spoke with Orangetown Superintendent, I've spoke with Ramapo, and they use other programs that we're looking into, like as far as micro paving, maybe that it's a thin coat that we could take care, and it would give us the extra years to actually move ahead and take care of the badly needed roads while still preserving what we have, because it's like an uphill battle. You get paved 10 and then you look and there's 23 more to go.
Right.
And I know everyone wants their road paved, and I wish I could pave every single road in 1 year.
Right.
It's just.
But I know that this year we're paving at least 41 streets,
41.
which is somewhere probably around 8 miles worth of roads is what we think.
Yeah.
You know, so if we have about 295 miles worth of roads, you know, you can just do the quick math on that. We're somewhere over 30 years,
33 years,
roughly, to be able to pave every single one of our roads. That's a big problem.
It is,
especially when the life expectancy of a road is about 20 years.
20. Well, it's even less with the way the changing of the blacktop. the way they don't put as much tars in them as they used to. And it's a problem that we're not getting. So we did actually change on our double yellow line roads this year. We put in a highway pave. It's called super pave. And we use that on the double to get an extra 5 to 8 years out of it.
Right.
So we're hoping that helps. And I think in the future we may end up doing it on most of our roads.
Right. And we received a very competitive bid this year from the outside contractor.
Correct.
It's a 2-year bid, which the prices are very, very
Right.
low, some of the best we've ever had, and it's enabling us to add a few
Yes.
more streets.
Yeah, it is. And we came in well below this year of budget.
Right.
So that actually helped us, so we can actually go ahead and maybe just get those few extra streets
Right.
that we want to get done that are, and then as far as next year, we're already into next year. Like I said, we're looking for, grants to try to get more money for other roads. And we're moving ahead well over there.
Right.
We have a great bunch of guys.
So we only just really touched the surface. I know that, and we're just about out of time, but, we'll have you on again to talk a little bit about what we've done. I mean,
Sure.
under your administration, we've added the GPS radios to every one of our trucks, so
Yes.
it gives us the ability to have real-time management. We can get
Absolutely.
reports on where the vehicles are, the speed.
Exactly.
It really a better way to manage
Times
the
that they
fleet, the
have
time.
been on that street, because we do get a lot of calls. I never see a truck,
Right.
and we're able to go back and look and say, hey, yeah, he hasn't been there,
Right.
or it's been a while. How come? What's going on? If a truck isn't moving, something happened. We can check to keep an eye on them, and it's a great system. That it started early. We got it right in, and it's been working great for us.
Right. And just to clarify for our residents, we are moving now to mimic the paving program of some of the other towns.
Correct.
So we'll continue with the full mill and
Yes.
rebuild of some of the roads that are in worse conditions, but we're really looking to move forward with what's called micropaving, where we put down about 2 to 2.5 inches of asphalt over the street, where we're not doing as much milling.
Right.
The pricing on that is about a quarter,
Yes.
as I understand it.
Yes,
So
it
it
is.
should allow us to do a lot more than 8
Right.
miles worth of roads going forward.
Yes, because some roads, as you know, are you can't just micropave them. You have to redo them. But there are some that they just have small little cracks that we are able to just maybe put the micropave over it, and it'll give us another 6 to 8 years.
Right.
And it does. It helps us get forward and hopefully catch up
Right.
to where, all right, now we're in a better place to pave a little more or a little less.
Right.
But
As my understanding is that the town would probably have to invest about $15 million a year on full paving to get us on a plan for 15 years.
yes,
So it's 15 for 15, and we're spending more now than we've ever spent. We're spending more than any town in the county,
Right.
but we're spending $2.5 million to pave our roads.
right.
And that's really that's a sizable number, but it pales in comparison to
right,
what
it's-
if we don't make changes in our approach.
In the way we go about doing things, absolutely, yeah. It's just too much of a cost.
Right, and we were very, very, very different in our approach.
Yeah.
We're the only town that doesn't do micropaving. We're the only
Right.
town that doesn't do chip and fill. And I think what we're really looking to is the micropaving, which will
Right.
enable us to do a lot more roads.
Right.
And those, the life expectancy of those roads, won't be the 18 to 20 years, but until they need to be redone. But they can last another 8 to 12 years.
We do have a few roads that we're looking to maybe oil and chip, and they're more an industrial road where we're not in residentials this way. We're not making as much of
Right.
a mess with the stone all over lawns and driveways, and that would help too because the
Right.
cost is a lot less.
Right.
So it is one option that we're looking at.
Right.
And we've been working well with you. Your office has been helpful with it.
Right.
So,
And if folks want to get in touch with your office, maybe you could give your contact information. If
yeah,
have
they
any
call me
questions.
at the Highway Department at 845-623-7500, or my email is f.desenzo@clarkstown.org.
Great. So Superintendent DeCenzo, I want to thank you for your efforts as our highway superintendent. I know that you're bringing some changes to the department, much needed changes to the department to help us better manage our budget and strengthen our infrastructure. And I want to thank you for being my guest on this
Thank you for
episode
having
of
me.
Hometown
I appreciate
Happenings.
it. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's our show for today. I want to thank our guests again, Al Samuels, the head of the RBA, Maureen Morgan from the American Legion, and Superintendent of Highways Frank DeCenzo for all of their efforts and for being such wonderful guests and providing such great information. Again, to learn more information about upcoming events within the town of Clarkstown, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and please contact my office if you have any questions at 845-639-2050, or check us out on our website at www.clarkstown.org. Thank you again for joining us for Hometown Happenings. Until next time, this is Supervisor George Hoehmann, and thank you for joining us.